Welcome to the Vitality Vault Podcast, your one-stop shop for health and wellness. Join us as we dive deep into the latest medical trends, break down complex health topics, and empower you to live a more vibrant life.
Hi there. I'm Dr. Bacchus Morris, a triple board certified physician who specializes in internal medicine, obesity medicine, as well as anti-aging, regenerative, and aesthetic medicine.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gerald Morris, and I am a double board certified physician in internal medicine and obesity medicine with special interest in peptide therapeutics, which I got certified in.
Together, we're passionate about helping you achieve optimal health and longevity. From exercise, nutrition, we'll be bringing you the latest cutting edge in terms of weight loss and everything else in the wellness world to help you achieve a healthier you.
So our goal is to help you live your best life. So whether you're looking for weight loss strategies, longevity, just want to live a little bit better, and have these tips that you can apply to your daily life from day one, we are here to help. So come join us on this journey.
Join the doctors, voted top internist in Tucson 4 years running. So let's unlock your potential together. Welcome to the Vitality Vault Podcast with Dr. B and Dr. G.
Welcome back, Tucson, to another episode of our Vitality Vault podcast. And we're going to be continuing into a series of talking about our women's hormones. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm Dr. B, and here we have the famous Dr. G.
Famous? Oh my gosh.
Famous for his socks. So we're going to see what
That's my claim to fame. And I wear it like a badge or sock of honor. So today, this is what I have. See this one here? I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it pretty well? There it is. I'll tell you. So what it says is Mr. Perfect. So it's a picture of a guy, as you can see.
That doesn't exist?
No, whoa! He has a vacuum cleaner, and he's cooking, and he's wearing an apron. It's actually a picture of me in the mornings.
Oh, yeah. That's what it is.
That's me in the mornings.
It's a selfie.
It's a selfie, yeah. It's a selfie socks. My producer, I know why he's laughing. I really know why he's laughing back there.
Well, you know what? It's fitting for women's hormones because at some point in our lives, for women, when our hormones start changing, we need that perfect husband.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, we need him to show up.
Okay, not in sock form?
No, not in sock form, in real form.
In real form?
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into this episode. Let's see what we can do to make lives better for women with regards to hormone health. Mm-hmm. And we are your age management gurus here, AMG. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So we spoke about in the first episode in the series, we spoke about the hormones,
yes,
what they did. So let's talk about when we start feeling those changes. So we'll talk about perimenopause and menopause, and definitely touch on hormone replacement. There's so much to talk about hormone replacement. We'll start the conversation today. So when do you typically expect to see symptoms or changes of perimenopause? So perimenopause, like it says, is just starting. It's around the change, as the name suggests, and typically it's around the mid-40s. But we've been noticing in the last decade that the women as early as mid-30s are starting to experience a change. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is so. This is when your hormones start declining and fluctuating and then, start having some symptoms. And we'll talk about those symptoms in just a bit. Now, when you actually get to the point where your menstrual periods and no more, and typically that's for about 6 months. So when it's at least 6 months between one menses to another, and we're talking about someone who has regular monthly menses. Mm-hmm. So when there's 6 months or more in between, that usually marks that point in your life as menopause. And typically that is between the age of 45 to 55. Again, sometimes we can see it a little earlier. And I have actually had patients go all the way to their early 60s with regular menses still. So again, not not the same for everyone. But definitely we're seeing changes a lot more earlier, and that's really important because some women are not expecting that, and so they're thinking when they start feeling fatigued or just not themselves that something else is wrong. But that's an indication for you to probably get your hormones checked if you start not feeling yourself. All right, so what are these symptoms that we're looking for? Definitely menstrual changes. So whether it be they're heavier, more painful, more clots, so just things that are changing that's different than your regular menses. Decreased libido is a big one. Definitely, of course, affects the intimacy of your marriage. So if that's happening, then you need to get them checked and see where you're at. Hot flashes and night sweats are one that most people know about. We talk about that for menopause a lot. It's just the inability to tolerate certain temperatures. Urinary changes, so you could have problems with leakage. You can actually have more urinary tract infections, especially if you're already prone to that. So that can occur more often with the changes. Mood shifts is a big one. People talk about hormones and mood. So, getting more depressed, more anxious, more irritable, definitely a sign. Weight gain is a big one. A lot of people start seeing this in their early 40s about most women, some weight changes. There was a study that showed on average when going into menopause, women would gain about an average of 20 pounds, and that's a big deal right there. And of course, that's mainly without any hormone replacement. Hair thinning. So hair thinning, and actually this goes kind of hand in hand with the skin changes, the dry skin. So it gets dry, your hair gets brittle. Sleep issues for sure. Difficulty with going and staying asleep is a big one. And sleep can affect so many other things in our body. So, joint changes, achy joints, sometimes they can get swollen, definitely painful, but we start experiencing more achiness at that point. Vaginal dryness and pain during intercourse is a big one as well. And memory lapses, especially if, during this time you're like, if you're a very busy person, especially if you're an executive, you're responsible for making big decisions, for keeping track of other people in your company, a lot of executive function going on. You can definitely see a lot of brain function deterioration during this time. And of course, difficulty remembering things, concentrating. Brain fog is a big one that people see with decline in estrogen. That's a lot that I get from my female patients. I'm just foggy. I just can't think straight. So many different symptoms.
When you look at the symptom list, I gotta be honest, this sounds like torture. It
does?
literally sounds like a torture-ridden time in a woman's life that can last anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Of just having these fluctuations. So,
Absolutely.
if you're suffering with this, why wouldn't you try to get help? Or why wouldn't you, it's ridiculous. I've also come across some patients who think that this is their lot in life. Like, oh, you know what, it's just a change. And I got to push back and be like, no, there's things we can do safely, obviously, to help mitigate most of these symptoms, so that way, or if not all, if it's done correctly, so that way you don't have to live in that suffrage. Because the list is, and that's just a list that we put together of the more common ones. I have seen patients where literally they have neurological symptoms apart from the brain fog, but they have what almost is like mimicking seizure activity, where their muscles are just chronically tremulous, and there was nothing else that we could find besides figuring out or saying let's replace these, and it went away. So there is a lot, I think, that's misunderstood about the whole menopause and the change, which they call it. So if you're someone out there suffering, and guys, pay attention to these symptoms, because let's be honest, if men had to go through something half of what Oh my gosh, I know.
It'll be worse than a man cold.
Oh my god.
Worse
Okay.
than a
There's
man
nothing on earth worse than a man cold. The man flu is real, guys. Don't listen to what they say. The man flu is real. I've had it a couple times in my life, and yes, it was not fun. The man flu is real. Now back to hormones. Yeah, I mean, if more men understood or realize what this time of life meant for their wives or girlfriends or whatever, whoever they're with, I think we'd see a lot more positive response to going out there and getting the help,
And, we're doing this to definitely raise your awareness of it, because not a lot of people, like you said, Dr. G, are aware of these changes and what it could produce. It could basically turn you into a different person. And we've seen it. And some people are more sensitive to the change than others. Like you talked about that one client with neurological symptoms. We've seen people present with GI symptoms where they think that they've developed something new, like we've gone down the autoimmune, barrel of trying to figure out, okay, is there something else going on? When it turned out to be hormones, and, I just said something else, autoimmune. The hormone changes could definitely put you at risk for other autoimmune problems. Not other, sorry, with autoimmune problems. So there's so much more, and just raising your awareness of what you could be experiencing if the hormones were off, so that you can kind of talk to your doctor and say, I think something is off. Can we check for A, B, and C? And letting other, especially of the other sex, so, letting the husbands, the boyfriends, the fiancés know that this is something that is going to happen probably, and to look out for, and trying to push back against the thought that this is normal and every female is going to experience this and it's just a normal part of life. Well, yeah, it probably is what happens normally in life, but we could do something about it. You don't have to sit through and suffer through it.
No.
Which was the thought before. We now have things that we could help.
Can do, yeah.
And we're trying to also, address the myth of hormone replacement and, the thought that it was bad for you before.
We're going to cross that bridge.
We're going to cross that as well, too. So much to unpack here. So let's go back to our slides. This is basically just a repeat of what we had mentioned in the last episode, just to give you, a refresher of lifestyle tips for symptom management.
Worth repeating, though. Worth repeating.
Definitely.
Definitely worth repeating. So sleep prioritization, managing stress, self-care. Self-care is important.
Absolutely.
Go get that massage, take time off a couple of times a month to go for a walk, meditate, maintaining a healthy body weight. And that's paramount in this day and age. Good diet, avoiding alcohol and caffeine. Once again,
excessive caffeine.
Excessive caffeine, but even alcohol too. It's a pro-inflammatory substance. And your body's already going through an inflammatory phase when you're in perimenopause or even in menopause. Why add more fuel to a raging fire? Don't do that. Stay hydrated. Drink lots of water. Exercise. And of course, reduce your exposure to toxins, which we talked about.
Absolutely. Next up, I think we do have a repeat of the supplements that we spoke about. So we just have a list here. The Vitex, magnesium, omega-3s, vitamin D, probiotics, the maca root, black cohosh, the dong quai, Chinese root, evening primrose oil, licorice root, and the one that Dr. G pounced on me the last time, the rhubarb.
What? No, it doesn't sound like me.
So, if you haven't watched the previous episode in the women's hormone, definitely check it out, because we talked about that at length. Okay, so let's talk about research with respect to hormone replacement therapy. Now, this is the meat of the stuff here. This is where everybody has the different opinions on. So back in the 1960s to 70s, early studies suggested that HRT definitely reduced the symptoms of menopause and helped to reduce osteoporosis as well. But some of these studies were lacking long-term data. So then became this big study that's called the Women's Health Initiative. And this ran from the 1990s to the 2000s. So a longer cohort study, large scale, and this is where the initial concerns about the safety of hormone replacement started. Now, it reported some increased risk of breast cancer, blood clots, strokes in some of these women, but they were taking certain estrogen and progestins. So basically, these were not bioidentical hormones, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So they were like the conjugated horse estrogen, like
Horsey.
the Premarin, and yes, not the good estrogen. And progestin is not the same as progesterone. These are synthetic compounds that do not mimic progesterone. So what was found is that the actual compounds that were used in this WHI study were not the best, and they're not bioidentical. And so some of these side effects that we were seeing were related to the types of hormones. Although they were using those types of hormones that's deemed not the best, they actually did find that there were some potential benefits for heart health in the younger woman. So now they're looking at throwing out a lot of what was seen in that study, because there have been numerous studies since then that's been shown that HRT is definitely beneficial when we're talking about heart health, when we're talking about bone health, healthier, reduced inflammation overall. So there's a lot of studies now that's kind of thrown that, thought of HRT being bad for you out the window. And so it's opened up this new world of hormone replacement. I've been getting more questions about it, and I am happy to talk about it because I've been researching this stuff. We've been doing it for years now, because we definitely have seen the benefits in our patients.
I mean, going back to the WHI initiative, which in my opinion, really did women a disservice. Like you mentioned, Dr. B, when they ran that study, the medicines they used, let's call them medicines,
right?
The estrogen with the progestin combinations are not the best. The cohort they used was an older cohort who already had health issues underlining. So you're talking about now making a blanket statement, because we learned this in med school too.
Yeah, we did.
learned this in med
They
school.
They taught us
in med school a couple of decades ago. Hey, women should not be on home HRT. It was like a blanket rule because of what came out of this flawed study, which hurt. I say for the last 3 decades, hurt a lot of women, because all of a sudden, what was good and helping was taken away overnight,
right?
Because of what came out. And honestly, in medicine, that's what we go with, the data we have, and the data back then sadly was flawed, but we went with it, and if you do some more digging on your own, and I encourage every woman out there, everyone actually, to look up the Women's Health Initiative. Do your own reading online. It's available to see, and look up when they found out that the data that they use, or the data from that study, was not a true representation of what the population should be, and was not a true depiction of the medications that are currently available, or were available even back then. So it's kind of one of those things where if people do the research, they'll realize that, wow, they realized decades ago that this study was sort of flawed, but there was no media about it. Up until this year, I think this year we saw on one of the major news outlets, where they finally said that the previous thinking about HRT being detrimental to women, they're now pulling back. And these are things that honestly we've been kind of advocating for our own patients for the last couple of years, saying, hey, no, the studies are out there. It's a matter of finding it and educating. So we still have doctor friends of ours who still, are no one, even gynecologists who we work with, they're the one, nope, you can't get it. And I was like,
because unfortunately that study, the WHI study, has made such a major impact on on the recommendations
Yes.
over the last couple decades,
Yes.
I would say. As you know, as we said, we learned that in med school, so it's actually written into
textbooks.
into those textbooks there, and so now it makes it harder now that the research is being kind of turned around. To turn, like, basically everybody that went to school around our time has been taught a certain way, and so we have a lot of other colleagues that still think that way, and it's just because of, this is what we know, this is what we learn, but we're trying to just keep you up to date on the research as things are changing. Medicine is an ever-changing,
ever-evolving
science, and we want to keep up with it, and we want to bring you the best for you. We're longevity doctors,
so we do.
Longevity experts, so we want to keep you up to date on what is best for you, what will help you live life better.
That's it. Now, let's talk about the different types of hormone replacement therapy that's out there. So when you sit down with your healthcare provider or your doc, you say, hey, got my labs back, or whatever it is they do, and what do we do now? You can either go on estrogen only, you can do a combination of progesterone or progestins. We're not big fans of progestins because they do increase your risk of blood clots and also have some cancer-bearing risk as well. Combination estrogen, progesterone replacement, that's using both at the same time. You can either do animal-derived HRT, which is what's commercially available right now on the market, which is the estradiol, the Premarin.
Estradiol is plant-based.
Plant-based, sorry.
They're
Estradiol is
both
plant-based, yes.
available,
They're both, yeah. But the Premarin is the animal-derived, which is horsey. That's right. You heard me right. Horsey estrogen. The compounded version is one we like to use. That's the more bioidentical one, so we like that as well. The reason why we like the compounded one is because it's more personalized. With the other formulations, it's like I mentioned before, prescribing for blood pressure. 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams. It's kind of a standard dose, and there's not much room to adjust based on a woman's body chemistry. And we know every woman is different when it comes to hormones. Hormones are a tough thing to manage. The administration route, topical, oral, or sublingual. Oral, we don't tend to like, just because oral, you do increase your risk of having those metabolites, because when you take the hormones orally, it goes through the first pass system. That's the system where it kind of has to be ingested, goes to the liver, and then the liver kind of breaks it down. But in doing that, you can get some not so good metabolites, which increase your risk of other diseases down the line.
And that's more specific to the estrogen.
That's more, yes, definitely more.
You can do progesterone.
Progesterone, yes.
Orally, yeah.
Yes, you can do orally.
Yeah, and typically we don't do testosterone orally.
The good thing about progesterone is that when you take it orally, it gets broken down to pregnenolone, and pregnenolone is the one that has a lot of benefit for sleep for women. So it's a good one, and that's the one you definitely can take orally safely. There's also topical preparations, which we like to use. Those are some of the best because you bypass the liver. You bypass the liver, the hormones don't get broken down into those nasty metabolites, and you do well, Oral troches, those are basically compounded formulations where you can put under your tongue that melt away. So they do go into the system through the vessels under the tongue. However, anything you put in your mouth has the risk of being ingested, obviously. So some of it will get ingested. So maybe not as much as doing the swallow pill, but you will get some ingested. So there is that risk of still going through the liver and having some of that hormone be kind of metabolized, improperly.
So the trick is just to keep it under your tongue
as long as you can,
or in the mucosal
buccal area
membrane, just as long as you can before swallowing. So hopefully you can get at least 90% absorbed through the vessels.
The mouth,
because your mouth, under your tongue, around your mouth, so vascular.
It is.
And the levels, they get in there, and they get in there pretty fast. So that's the nice thing about, especially if you're doing like a troche at night to help with sleep. It really helps to set in quicker. But as Dr. G said, you want to make sure you're not swallowing too much of the active stuff before it gets absorbed. So I tell my patients, just keep it there as long as you can before swallowing. I'm pretty sure you've heard the term bioidentical hormones, and you're wondering what exactly does this mean? So the definition is basically what these hormones have the same chemical form as the human hormone. So these are they're made in the lab, but the chemical structure is identical. So the estrogen is identical to the estrogen that's found in your body naturally. The progesterone and testosterone as well too. So they're thought to be a safer form of hormone replacement because they mimic your natural hormones. If you make something that is the same chemical structure, then your body is going to respond to it similarly to your natural hormones. And there's been lots of studies around that's shown that they are safer than some of the other commercially available synthetic hormones. So advantages of bioidenticals, typically most of these are done through the compound pharmacies. And we're going to talk about the different types in a minute. But that way you can actually formulate the dosage depending on the person. So personalized dosage, where it's not one fit all. And definitely, as I said, it's viewed as safer because of different studies that show this. But of course, you still got to monitor because even a good thing in not the right amounts can affect you negatively.
That's true.
So again, personalized care, no one fits all. And it definitely can help to provide. So any kind of hormone replacement can help to provide relief from menopausal symptoms, but especially the bioidentical ones, the ones that are mimicking your natural hormones, can help your body to continue to function normally like it did before you had hit that perimenopause or menopausal era. Now, let's talk about the 3 different types of bioidentical hormones and how we replace them. Kind of touched on this a little bit on the safe ways to replace it, but let's talk about the different ones because they all work together, but they're so different by themselves. So with estrogen, topical via cream or patch is definitely the safer way to go with respect to the metabolites that can be potentially risky for you. You avoid most of those metabolites when you do it topically. So you can get this compounded as a cream. You can also get it commercially as a patch where you would change it either weekly or bi-weekly. So those are your topical options. You could definitely do it sublingually as a troche. They're now making the hormones as rapid dissolved tablets as well that go sublingually under your tongue. Some people don't like the gelatin part of the troche. And some people actually can't do the gelatin, like if you can't do like pork products based on your religion or preference. These are definitely, they're quicker absorbed. So I personally like starting estrogen replacement as topical because it's the safest way.
It is.
And if patients have they don't like the stickiness or they just can't work with the topical creams or the patches don't stay on for very long, especially if you sweat a lot or if you swim a lot or exercise a lot, we might want to try something like the sublingual troches or tablets. I definitely really try to avoid oral forms of estrogen. That is when you actually have the pass through the liver and you have these potentially harmful metabolites that can be carcinogenic or prothrombotic, we call it, where it can promote the formation of blood clots. So we want to try to avoid oral. And I found that, because I have a lot of patients who come to me already on some form of hormone therapy. Those that are on oral estrogen, it's really hard to get you to change because your body gets so used to those metabolites. It's so hard to change to a different form. They feel like they're going through withdrawals. And I find that it also causes more proliferation of tissue, especially in the endometrium. It causes the lining of the uterus to be a little thicker. So like if I have someone on oral estrogen and I convert them to topical or sublingual, they tend to have some postmenopausal bleeding, which, is a big red flag, but I actually let them know, hey, this can happen because you probably have a thicker lining, but we actually want that to shed if it's built up there. So I try to avoid prescriptions of oral estrogen. Now, this is an important one. Progesterone should really be added to in a postmenopausal woman, especially when you're replacing estrogen. You should also balance with progesterone because it helps to protect against that proliferative effect of estrogen, especially on the breast and endometrial tissue. There's a myth where it was taught, again, in med school, just based on those previous studies, where only women with a uterus should have progesterone replacement because they're the only ones that need the progesterone protection.
Yes.
But if you still have breast, you still need that progesterone protection. And if you still have a brain, which I think we all do, you still would like those good effects of progesterone on your brain. Estrogen dominance, so if your estrogen is up here and your progesterone is bottomed out, definitely can cause some symptoms there, the unwanted symptoms. So you want a good balance of your estrogen and progesterone. So yes, whether you have a uterus or not, you definitely should be on progesterone if on estrogen also. And estrogen can also be used vaginally to relieve urinary symptoms or atrophic symptoms of dryness and pain. So I have lots of patients who would do like a systemic estrogen plus vaginal estrogen to help with symptoms. Progesterone is it's the safest, I would say, hormone here from all of these to replace. And you could do it topically via creams. You could do sublingual tablets or troches, and you can do it orally as well too, and it is safe orally because it helps to protect the different GYN tissues. It is, as I said, safe in all forms. And typically, if you're doing a progesterone-only replacement, sometimes you can combine all three in a cream. You can combine two together in like a sublingual troche. But if you're doing progesterone by itself, best taken at night because it does make you a little drowsy. And a lot of my patients love that because with the insomnia that comes on with menopause, you definitely want something to help with sleep. Testosterone, typically I do this only as a cream because topically has been shown to be the safest form. Again, if I have someone who just have problems with using a cream, don't like it, it's not working out for them, the sublingual tabs or troches are the next best option. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on pellets implants. So they're pellets implants that can be done mostly, now I would say primarily I would just do pellet implants for testosterone. This is the one that's kind of the most stable as a pellet therapy because you think about it, your hormone needs do change day by day. When you implant a pellet, it's in there for at least 3 months. It can last up to 6 months. So usually it's replaced or not really. It's not really removed. So I shouldn't say replaced, but it's redone every 3 to 6 months. Sometimes I can see levels staying as long in the body as a year or even longer. So for that reason, testosterone is the one that I only do as pellets. Sometimes you can have pellets that includes estrogen and very rarely progesterone. But again, just the stability there in the pellets with those two, not recommended. So testosterone is one of those common ones you can have implanted as a pellet. And it's great for men, by the way, because you could, men don't like to remember things to do daily. But it's actually, so, remembering a cream daily, probably not great for everyone. But for some women, they do like the pellet testosterone, especially with like libido and energy. It helps with that. And testosterone creams can be used vaginally, again, for atrophic symptoms and even urinary symptoms as well. It helps there. And sometimes I combine both the estrogen and testosterone cream compounded for vaginal vaginal use, and a lot of women just love that because it, helps with lubrication and helps to avoid that irritation and pain. Definitely can help with repeated UTIs if you're that person that unfortunately happens to have that. So many different ways that you see that, we could use these hormones. Again, you talk to your doctor about what is the best way for me. And many times, the very first time that we try that, your prescription gets sent, it may not be that optimal, but, it's a work in progress. Sometimes it takes a year or so to kind of get things right. I typically, if we're starting off, I would repeat testing, and we're going to talk about testing in just a bit. Repeat testing in a few months. Like usually I give 2 to 3 months, repeat some testing. And even when we're on a regular, good dosage where I think that things are being, the symptoms are being well controlled, about every 6 to 12 months is typically, I would check again just to make sure that everything looks good in your body.
Yeah, and the good thing about testosterone in pellet form is that it is linked to cardiac output. So the more you work out or the more active you are, the better. And with all the hormones, you don't just want to, put it this way, you don't want to get on hormone replacement therapy because you do need it and you're still doing the same things that's going to negate the hormones. So it's like pouring water into a bucket that has a huge hole. So you want to fix the lifestyle things to help optimize the hormone function, because that's the best recipe for success. So so if you're someone who is, I'm not gonna quit smoking, I'm not gonna quit drinking, then you most likely are not gonna be a good candidate for hormone replacement therapy. But if you're someone who is geared to living your life better, having a better health span, not necessarily a lifespan, then this may be an option for you to tack on to what you're already doing to achieve better health. Absolutely. So you can't just sit on your butt and expect the hormones to do everything. You got to get up and do something too. So testing. With everything we do, you cannot fix what you don't measure. You cannot adjust. So it's important to have good monitoring and testing. There's blood tests, saliva tests, and urine tests. Depending on what we are doing or how we're replacing, we use either. Typically, we always start off with the blood test to get a good baseline to see where you are. And the reason why we do the blood testing is that we can also measure those feedback hormones. Right. So it can tell us the FSH, LH, how those are doing in relation to the actual end organ hormones or the sex hormones, which is the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Salivary testing is also another good one to do, and it helps with optimizing levels during replacement, because you can sometimes see levels in the salivary secretions coming out there. Urine testing, we typically use that looking for metabolites. We want to see, when we do urine testing, exactly where is your body taking this hormone? Like which pathway is it taking it down, right? So once it gets broken down, is it going down a not so good pathway, or is it going down a really good pathway? That's a good thing to know by doing the urine testing. So depending on who you see, they might, use all three of these at varying times in your hormone journey, just to see exactly where you're at. But it's always good, no matter who you see, to get testing done while you're on hormone replacement therapy. Don't just go with the whole idea of, well, I feel great. No, we need to be always testing in a frequency, depending on your physician, could be every 3 or every 6 or every 4 months based on where you're at in this journey. But you should always be getting tested, because it's not uncommon to feel good and then you do testing and your levels are through the roof. That sustained over a long period of time can be disastrous. And
not just the hormone levels, but other things it can affect.
That's true.
So typically anyone, like for example, on testosterone replacement, we want to monitor CBC levels because it can actually increase your red cell mass. And if it gets over a certain level, we need to pull back on that dosage because that will put you at a risk, a different reason that would put you at a risk for clots and other things. So, there are different reasons why we check other levels as well, to not just the hormone levels, but what are other things it can affect. Could affect kidney function, can affect liver function. So, again, hormone therapy is pretty intricate. And so just understanding that and knowing that you as a patient need to, do your part in keeping up with going for your regularly scheduled visits and blood work or salivary testing, whatever we're doing at the time. That's really important too for you to have a healthy relationship with these hormones. So we're at the end here now of, this particular one. So today we talked about individual approach and why it's important, why personalizing your hormone therapy is key to your health. Working with experts or people who understand how to tailor your HRT to your needs. And we always talk about lifestyle changes and how you can better your health with just those healthy habits.
Yes.
How they could significantly change the way you feel and the way things actually appear on your lab work and whenever we do any kind of testing. That's really important, and that's what we're here to push first and foremost is fixing those lifestyle changes, those healthy habits that you can incorporate, and then how we can then help you build on that as well too. So,
great episode, Dr. B.
Yeah.
Loved it.
And we can go on and on about this.
And there's more to come with regards to hormone health for men and women. So from Vitality Vault, we are happy to have you here today, Dr. B. Any final words before I sign us off?
No, I would just say I hope this really helped to shed a light for you. Anyone who had, just kind of looming questions or seeing different things out there on the internet. You can't believe anything that you see out there. I mean, definitely do your research. Go to PubMed, go to the actual published studies and read about them instead of Googling stuff. Google is great for some things, but not so good in other things. And, try with your social media, if you're listening to people talking about hormonal health, make sure you're listening to people that are experts in the field and, not the people. Basically, just be careful about what you listen to. Do your research well. And if you have any questions, we're always here to help.
That's right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us in the Vitality Vault today. Can't wait to get you guys back in the vault for our next episode. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Vitality Vault with Dr. B and Dr. G. Don't forget to check out our other informative episodes as the doctors dive deep into your health and wellness so you can live a more vibrant life.